He abandoned his job at King George Hospital, currently Kenyatta National Hospital, and traveled to his native Kirinyaga home with one mission: to make his contribution in the struggle for independence, the struggle to reclaim lands that have been taken away from the black man by the white people. This was after the declaration of the state of emergency in 1952. Unlike the other freedom fighters, the man did not go to the forest. After all, he was an advanced native as classified by the colonial government, a sort of civilized native, as a paramedic working in Kenyatta National Hospital. So he chose to make his contribution by treating wounded freedom fighters. Just like Gikuyu women were used and they participated in the struggle by smuggling guns and carrying them, just as the Gikuyu women, against all odds and at great risk, provided food to the freedom fighters in the forest, the man decided to be treating the wounded soldiers, the wounded fighters, the Mau Mau fighters. Again, it was a great risk. He did this for some years, a few years, always taking the greatest of caution not to be caught by the colonial government, the home guards, the local chief, the administrator, working under the supervision of the Mzungudio and others. He did it so well. He never carried the drugs. There's always a person to carry the drugs. And even when they began to suspect him, they never found something on him. Somebody else carried the drugs. He took another path, using the Mau Mau secret codes and secret ways. He arrived at some destination. The wounded Mau Mau fighters would be there. He would dress their wounds. He would give medicine to those who needed medicine. Then again, he will use a different route from that used by the person who carried his paraphernalia and his drugs. But as it so often happens with such a risky missions, there's always that one Kimathi moment when you are arrested. Quite often, because some betrayer has tipped off the colonial administration staff, the home guards, the chief, and so on, the police. So the man was arrested. He was taken to Keregoya police station. When his wife followed there to go and see him, he was not there. He was told he had been taken to another police station. Kenya in the 1950s did not have the sort of communication we have today. It did not have the civil society we have today. The men and women like a lead, whom we must celebrate all the time. She never saw her husband again. She never saw her husband again. This story was told to me by an old woman who I met. I always interact with people in Mali, somewhere between Nairobi and Mombasa. She told me she never saw her father. That man was her father. She never saw her father. And she said, the family, like many other Mau Mau families, were able to bear the pain because they knew tomorrow will be a better day. That the sacrifice the people made will one day pay off. And indeed, as a young little girl, she could see the celebration when Kenya attained her self-rule, when Kenya attained her independence. And of the joys and the jubilations and dance and song. As a growing up young girl, she witnessed getting to participate in some during national days, Madaraka Day, Jamhuri Day, Kenyatta Day. The pain of not ever having seen her father was perhaps born. Because as she became of age, a little girl of age, then a teenager, she got to know that her father paid the ultimate price in the struggle for the independence of this country. That she was a free girl in a free country, going to school with the hope of a wonderful future because of the blood of the freedom fighters and of the sacrifice her father made. A man should not get to meet. Now, when I met this woman this week, on a Wednesday this week to be specific, that should be about 3 or so days ago, she told me, Manyora, you speak for this country. We thank you so much. But tell me this, Manyora, was it worth it? Was the sacrifice worth it? Did my father have to die for this? The people who died for this country, if from wherever they are, they see what's going on in the country, what do they feel? Was it worth the pain? Was it worth the sacrifice? Was it worth it that my father should disappear, never to be seen again? Then she posed the most painful question I've ever faced. She asked me, Manyora, Be honest with yourself and with me. Would we be better off under the colonial administration? Would I be better off as an individual, growing up as a girl, a child, a girl, seeing my father like other children seeing their fathers? And my father drinking the Muratina from his in-laws who would come to take me for a wife. Of my father growing up, aging, playing around with the grandchildren, even in a colonial state. Would it not be better, Manyora, if the colonial people hadn't left, if Kenya was still a colony? These questions are not empty questions. Indeed, they are very painful questions. The hopes of those who fought for this country, the hope of their children and the children of their children, completely destroyed. I listened to this woman. At some point, I felt my lips were dry. When I ran my tongue over my lips, there was the taste of salt. Only then did I know a whole man like me, a man of my age, a grown-up man, was shedding tears. And there are many such a people. I think I was so overcome by emotion that I could not remember to even take her conduct. There are many people like her in this country. People who ask that difficult question, was it really worthwhile? Was it really worthwhile? Was it worthwhile? Would we not even be better? Why was she asking these questions? In her own words, she was asking this because it is painful seeing what is going on in the country. Of the games politicians play when the ordinary men and women in this country, the children of this country, are suffering and dying. She was very categorical. It was about games. That the politicians in this country and other political and other leaders, not necessarily political leaders, to them it is a game. It is pirates occasionally throwing one of their own and tossing them into the sea. The impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua was the epitome of all this, was the exemplification of the games politicians play, the thinking the common men and women, the men whose fathers and mothers died so that we may be free. That the grandchildren of those who fought for this country, or of those who dared to dream that we could be an independent country, steering our destiny, developing, that such a people, all these Kenyans are just fools, they are imbeciles, they were jinga, that they are so daft, they do not see the games being played. So the politicians continue to play their games with the future of the children whose grandparents, whose fathers and mothers died for this country. They continue to play games. As they play games, the suffering continues. They play games with the health of Kenyans, making health a business for people to make billions. And Kenyans continue to die. To them is a game. Never mind that cancer is ravaging the country, that they do not even care the sort of foods enter this country and what people put in their stomachs in this country. They do not care about the poison that is sold in the shops and supermarkets of this country and the pharmacies of this country. That every day Kenyans are imbibing cancerous elements. That the Nairobi River is filled with heavy metals, not only making the river an eyesore, but destroying life in the rivers. And as you make the Dhwake Dam, you can purify the water, but you can never get rid of the heavy metals, mercury, lead. That cancer will destroy communities around the Dhwake Dam. Nobody seems to care. To the politicians of this country, it is all a game of power, of who gets in and who gets out at what time and in what manner. Do we expel you from our party or do we impeach you? Do we rig you out of a nomination or do we sell the party ticket to the highest bidder? It's all a game. And as they play those games, the children of this country are denied an education because the money meant for education is stolen in the same game. It's all a game of making money and a game of power. That the children of this country, in their millions or hundreds of thousands, go to school with jiggers in their toes. But the game must continue. The game of power and the game of money. That millions of children attend school barefoot, going to maggot-filled pit latrines where there's any. It's all a game of politics, a game of power. It's a game of numbers. A woman of the age of the woman I talked to in Emali has seen it all. She had hopes that she'll be a person one day, like I said when she went to school. The little opportunities available were given to the sons of home guards, the Ngatis. Just like the land that should have been given to the people who had been dispossessed, the land was again given to mission boys, to the home guards, the Ngatis, to the traitors and those who betrayed the community. A woman of that age has grown watching her children dispossessed of any future. As education got destroyed and the little opportunities were a preserve of a few of the rich, of the connected. And even when some of them, against all odds, struggled to see their children to university, the jobs were preserved of those who are members of the club, who play in the league of politics, power, and money. Now these children, jobless, trying marriage and marriage not working, have brought children to their mothers. They have gone to try their luck in town where they are classified as prostitutes and given all manner of names. They have watched their sons get mauled by the police because they are classified as Mungiki. The pain has been unbearable. The children who are brought by their mothers have themselves grown up in the same circle. Same cycle has been repeated. They have tried education, it has not worked because there's no education for the poor people in this country. Like their mothers before them, they have tried marriage, it has not worked. They have brought children to their grandmothers. So a woman of that age has remained a mother that every year she has a child to take care of. In these very, very hard times. To sum it all, it has been a painful, independent Kenya to them. The women in Mount Kenya region have watched as their children become zombies, drunkards who sleep by the roadside, attempts to get home many times becoming unsuccessful, sleeping in the trenches, in banana plantations and coffee plantations. It is not because the children want to be drunkards and zombies. It is because there has never been a future presented to the young people. In the game of politics, power, and money, it matters not that a whole generation is being destroyed and other generations are being destroyed. It doesn't matter. In that game, the people selling poison to the young boys and girls, especially boys, enjoy political protection because it's all about power, politics, power, and money. I pose these questions to my dear countrymen. Is this really necessary? That those of you who enjoy this game, I ask you for a little reflection. Just think about your great-granddaughter. The granddaughters, the grandsons, the great-grandchildren of those dispossessed freedom fighters, of those who are tortured in detention camps. When as a young man in Form 2, I read J.M. Kariuki's book, Mamao in Detention. I read the Kiswahili version, Maumau Kizuizini. Mateso waliopitia Wakenya, hususan watoto wa nyumba ya Mombi. Wakiwa kizuizini, wakiwa katika jela. When I passed Voi on Thursday, coming back to Nairobi, I saw Manyani prison, maximum security. I remembered that book. The atrocities committed against the people in those camps, in those jails, sexual harassment and abuse. J.M. Kariuki anatuambia wamama waliwekewa chupa katika sehemu zao za siri. Na hawa mabeberu na vibaraka vyao. That we went through all that politics should just be a game. Politics, power, and money. I ask our leaders, reflect a bit. Make all the money you want, even the one you don't need, because you don't need all that money. Continue making it. Stack it everywhere, including out of this country. Do it, I won't stop you. But spare a moment and think about the pain, the suffering, the loss. Think about this woman I met in Mali who never saw her father. She was not alone. But who bore it? Who thought it was necessary? But watching the helplessness, the hopelessness, watching the destruction of whole generations, and the politicians reducing everything to a game. I urge you, politicians, I urge you, leaders of this country, please, spare a moment for your country. Think about those who suffered for this country, please. But think more importantly, you can also be selfish. Ask yourself one question. What sort of country will my great-granddaughter live in? Will my great-granddaughter find a country called Kenya? Don't destroy it. Don't be so unfair. Don't be so unkind to your own blood. Think of your own blood. If you think I'm just talking, look around you. Look at people who are famous ones in the 60s or 70s. Homes of people who, when they coughed, the whole village trembled. Chiefs. Go there and see if they have families. Look at powerful ministers in this country. Powerful businessmen. There are a number of them whose homes are ruins. And their children are chokora. Think of a future without you. But a future where there is a country for your granddaughter and for your great-grandson. So that even when you are not there, because you are long gone, you participated and contributed to making Kenya a place where from wherever you are, yonder or under, you know your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are in a peaceful country, in a prosperous country where they are doing well. Don't ruin your country.